What's up, growers? It's Bjorn here from the Growbo team, and as you'll notice, I am not in our usual studio. With everybody staying home right now because of COVID-19, I thought that I'd film something from my house. We're trying out a couple different things, and the video we're going to do today is how to make cannabis kombucha, or canna kombucha. You can buy all the ingredients separately, especially once you're a little more advanced, or you can start with a kit. There's some great kits online. We'll put some links below. And this is how we're going to do it. So we'll start with making the kombucha itself, and then we'll use some of our honey cannabis oil later on in the video to show you how you can actually infuse that cannabis into it. So let's get started. The very first thing that you're going to need is your tea and your sugar and some water. There's a couple different teas you can use, but pretty much any blend of black tea is going to work nicely. I like to use one of these reusable tea bags as well. It's just a little bit more friendly for the environment, and they steep really well. So to start with, we're going to take one of these tea bags, and we're going to fill it with just 3 tablespoons of this nice loose leaf tea. Just pull your tea bag and you're ready for the next step. Okay, so we've got our tea bag with the 3 tablespoons of tea in it. Now I already started to boil the water. So we're starting with 4 cups of water, and that's what we're going to boil our tea into. So you can just get the bag in there. With these reusable bags, I find generally just dipping them a couple times, getting them nice and wet helps them sink a bit, and you'll pretty immediately start to see the tea seep out. So as your tea is starting to steep, that'll take about 5 to 7 minutes. So this is a great time to get ready for the next steps that we're going to do. The next step, once the tea is ready, is that we're going to mix in about a cup of sugar. Organic cane sugar is always awesome to go with, but really you can pick any sugar that you like. The sugar is going to get eaten by the SCOBY that we put in later, so it's a really critical process for making the kombucha. So this is the jar that we're going to use. A couple nice features about this jar. One is you want to add one of your temperature strips beside it. So with your kombucha, you always want to keep it between about 68 degrees here, and I like to draw a little line, and right at the top about 86 degrees as well. That way for the next 8 to 10 days as your first fermentation is happening in this jar, you know exactly that you're at the right temperature. And you'll see this switch over time. The next thing that's really nice for you as well is you can add the date. So we're going to just put in March 17th. So that's the date that we've started. You can put in the end date as well if you'd like to look 8 days out. Really, it's up to you. What we're going to do now is you see that something's in it already. This is the SCOBY. So this is the starting material that does the whole fermentation process. We want to take this out before we add our tea, and that's just because we don't want to burn it. So I've got another little jar here, and we're just going to pour this SCOBY right out into that jar. It's got some liquid around it. That is some leftover tea from the previous brew that we did. And so that keeps the SCOBY nice and alive. Okay, so we're gonna put that just on the side, and our water and tea are ready to go. So our tea has now been steeping. We're just gonna take the tea bag out. We'll just put it off to the side. Now we get to put our sugar in. We'll put the whole cup of sugar right in. And then we start the mixing process. We want to keep mixing until all of the sugar has dissipated. The next step is that we can put it right into this kombucha jar. We're going to pour it carefully, of course. It is still very, very hot. Once that's in, you can see how hot it is. If we were to add the SCOBY right now, we would actually damage the SCOBY and we could kill it. So what we're going to do is we're going to cool it off by adding more cold water to it. So this was 4 cups of water. What we want to add is about another 8 cups of cold water. Personally, I like to add some ice cubes as well. I find that helps the cooling process happen significantly faster. Okay, so I've got a little bit of ice here. What we're looking for is our temperature to be between these ranges. So right now, we can see that it's 86. But it's coming up to 88 because it still is quite hot. So we'll add a little bit of ice to make sure that we're comfortably in that range. If you have one of these temperature gauges on the side of your jar, is that as you mix in your ice, you'll immediately see the temperature start to drop. In this case, it's beautiful. We are right between our 2 temperature markers at 78 degrees right now. So we are ready to add our SCOBY. Now that your SCOBY's in, it'll start to float around a little bit. Eventually you will see it, even if it sinks to the bottom, it will float up to the top, and that's where it's gonna live for the next 8 to 10 days or so. We're almost done. The final step is that you're gonna take this little bit of cheesecloth here and then cover it with cheesecloth. That helps nothing go in, but lets a lot of the gases escape from it. And then just with an elastic band, hold that cheesecloth on. That's it. One final step that you can do if you want to is you can test the pH of it to make sure that the pH is below 4, but that's really up to you at that point in time. What you'll want to do now is you'll want to take this jug and put it into a nice dark place, not too cold, not too hot. Remember how important the temperature is, and then leave it there. You don't want to touch it if you can avoid it for the next 8 to 10 days. Just let it ferment, do its thing. One thing I like to do is just go over and smell it a little bit, because even now you can already smell a little bit of the SCOBY and some of the fermentation process. So we'll check in again in a few days when we're ready to look at bottling. All right, welcome back everybody. Today we're gonna finish the first ferment that we're doing, but before we do that, don't forget to subscribe to the channel below. Make sure you get all the exciting updates that we're producing and the cool videos. So this is the kombucha. We are about 9 days into it right now. Anywhere between 8 and 10 days, you're good to start the second ferment process and to finish this first fermentation. Personally, I like the 8 to 9 day mark a little bit earlier. Keeps it a little bit sweeter, but if you want more dry, you can keep letting that going. One of the best ways that you can test is that you actually pull this cover off here. And if you have a little pipette, you can put that in and pull out a little bit of your kombucha to taste beforehand. The reason you want to use a pipette is so that you don't disturb the kombucha piece that's on the top. So with your pipette, to test it out, you're going to just sneak it in along the side. The SCOBY will bend down and out of the way, and then you're able to squeeze it and suck up some of that liquid. That way your SCOBY bounces right back completely undisturbed. You want to try to disturb this as little as possible as you work through the first phase. So I'm going to give this a little test here. That is definitely ready to go. You can smell that it's been fermenting, and it really has a unique odor, especially as it breathes over the 8 to 10 days of this life cycle. So we are ready to start our fermentation process. So now that we're gonna actually pull the SCOBY out, the very first thing we wanna do, especially today, is wash our hands. One of the most important things you can do. I'm gonna do the full 20-second wash here. You wanna make sure to get your thumbs. That's one of the areas that most people forget to wash. So we are now ready to go. We're gonna pull out the SCOBY. And what we need to do, because it's a living thing, is we're gonna put it into this bowl here with about 2 cups of our kombucha. That keeps the SCOBY healthy and living. So you just reach right in, and I can guarantee you it feels a little bit weird, but you will see it kind of comes apart. So you have this first layer, and that's the layer that's been growing throughout our entire process here. And then you still have this other piece of your SCOBY, and this is the piece that we actually started with. This is generally good for at least 5 to 7 kombucha brews for you. We're just gonna put about 2 cups of liquid on top, and just make sure that it's nicely submersed, and that keeps our SCOBY really happy. I'm gonna put a little bit more in there. Wonderful. We're going to come back to this SCOBY afterwards, but for now you can just put it out to the side. Okay, so we've got our kombucha, it's ready to go. We're now going to start the bottling process, and this is where we're actually going to start pulling some of the cannabis into it. But first, we are going to put it into the bottles. When you're picking bottles, you've got a couple options. This bottle is an actual kombucha bottle that I previously bought, and this is something you can use if you want to use kind of a recycled option. The one catch is that your carbonation is not going to be as good if you're using a bottle like this. And that's really just because the top seals okay, but not as well as some other options. Personally, what I prefer to use are these bottles. They've got these lock tops that go on them, and they really seal up and allow that carbonation to build over the next few days. So these are the ones that I'm going to use. And one of the other things that I really love using when making kombucha is one of these funnels. And what's special about this funnel is 1, it's really nice and easy to clean, but 2, it has this filter. So when you sauce, take the SCOBY out. There was a lot of kind of loose ends on it. Some of those might end up in your kombucha as well if it starts breaking off. So this filter is really nice because it helps make sure the kombucha coming into your jar is nice and clear. What we've made will fill up about 500 mils in each bottle. It's about a 1 gallon jar that we've been making here. So to fill it up, pop your funnel in and you're ready to go. Just give it a nice steady pour. What we're gonna aim for is about this level, just towards the bottom of the neck. That leaves us some space to actually put in our fruits afterwards, which are crucial for the next stage of this. So now that we've finished putting all the kombucha into the bottles, we're gonna do our next step with the kombucha itself. So what we're gonna do is take this SCOBY that we saved before. We've got a bunch of leftovers that are still in here. And we're gonna just put the SCOBY back in with the liquid into our container. This will let it live until the next time we wanna use it. Just like that, your SCOBY is good to go. It can stay for a few weeks like this. If you're gonna try to stay a little bit longer, you need to brew some tea and add a little bit of sugar as well to keep it alive. The last piece we will do is just put a little cap on it. And that's it. So your SCOBY is nice and happy and healthy and can move to the side. Now comes the exciting part where we start to put cannabis into the mix. So what we've got here is a honey cannabis oil. This is made in one of our other videos and I'll post the link right here for you. So click that if you want to know how it's made. But what it becomes is sort of a honey consistency, as the name implies. So it's pretty thick. What we want to do is start to melt it a little bit. And so we'll start heating it up, and that's going to make it easier to mix into our kombucha. So we'll just put it into this container and then we'll start with the microwave. I'm going to start in 10-second increments. And then we'll do this a couple times until we get it to the right consistency that's easy for us to put into the bottles. So it took about 1.5 minutes or so in 10-second intervals to get it to this point. And you can just see kind of how liquidy that is. This really is total liquid now. So it's perfect for us to start putting into our kombuchas. So we'll start with this first one. We've got a little bit of our oil. What you want to do is put about a pea-sized amount in. So what I'm gonna do here is just grab it, and watch out, it might be quite hot, and just pour a little bit in. And that's it. We're gonna make a couple of these. So now that your cannabis oil is actually in these, you will see it clump up a little bit, but that's okay. What we're gonna do next is we're gonna put in the raspberries, and they really start the second fermentation once we close it up, because that carbonation starts to build and gives you that nice fizzy flavor that we like in kombucha. So let's throw some raspberries in. Just about 3 or 4 raspberries per kombucha bottle is perfect to get that process going. And with that, our raspberries are in, and we're ready to close these up. You can use fresh raspberries or frozen raspberries. Personally, I just like fresh ones, but it really won't change anything. And what the raspberries are gonna do is not only add flavor, but the SCOBY and what's still alive in your kombucha is gonna start to eat the sugars in the raspberries, and that's what creates that carbonation we were talking about. So these covers are great. Takes a nice, good push to seal them. Once this is done, you're gonna just put them to the side. You'll wait about 2 to 4 days for them to still continue this second fermentation process. You want to make sure that the place that you put them is nice and dark, but not too cold. The colder it is, the slower the fermentation is going to happen. So if you keep it at kind of room temperature, that's the best place for you to be. And then you can start tasting it. Figure out what you like. When it's at a taste that you like, then put them in the fridge, and that'll generally just stop the fermentation process. And you can keep them there for a couple weeks until you finally drink them. So this is it for now. We're gonna put these to the side, let them rest for 2 to 4 days, and then we'll pull them out and start the taste test. What's up, everybody? It's been about 4 days since we put these in a warm, dark place to start the second fermentation process. We're gonna check out quickly how they turned out. Before I do that though, in the description below, I'm gonna throw in a couple links for different kits that you can get that help you to start to brew kombucha. Personally, that's where I started. That's why I've got these great bottles and some of the key items that you need to get this done, like the jug as well. And then you can just buy the tea and the sugar anywhere you want. So I'll throw those links below. Also, don't forget to subscribe as you're scrolling down the page. So let's see how these turned out. It's been 4 days. Anywhere from 2 to 4 days is perfect for letting them settle. And then you can put them in the fridge. Once you put them in the fridge, they largely stop that second fermentation process. So we've got our 2 bottles here. This one with the C on it is our cannabis kombucha. This is our regular one. One of the first things you can tell is that the color of them is pretty similar. So they haven't changed too much. Now let's open it up and see how the fizz goes. Got them both open. One of the first things that I noticed is just how much more carbonation is in this one. This has our cannabis in it, and when we pop the top off, it really popped. You can even see some of it fizzing up in here. Now we'll pour this one out so we can show you what it really looks like. Now you see that you end up getting a couple of berries still in there. Those are the raspberries that we used. They discolored a little bit. Honestly, I normally just eat them as I enjoy the kombucha, but it's completely up to your preference. As we actually look at the 2 of them now, we have this open. If we smell it, you do get a hint of that cannabis smell. It's pretty faint and subtle. One of the other interesting things that's happened in this is that the cannabis seemed to ball up a little bit. So it didn't kind of mix in as well as we expected with the kombucha. So something that we probably suggest next time, maybe check out a coconut oil, or something a little bit different, even a THC or a CBD, one of those clear oils that's very liquidy and will mix through, could give you a really nice end result. Now what we've done is I've actually delivered a couple last night to a few of our testers, got some of their feedback. They said the same thing. They said that they didn't feel a ton of effect of the cannabis. They could taste it a little bit, but not tons. And they would also recommend changing what we do with it. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out the other videos we have on how to make the cannabis oil. We've got videos on how to make gummies as well. And have fun growing.